In the gleaming corridors of Apex Tech, a fortress of innovation towering over Silicon Valley, the air thickened with unspoken hierarchies. On a crisp autumn morning in 2023, Elijah Thompson, a unassuming black janitor in his late 50s, pushed his cleaning cart through the executive floor. His hands, calloused from years of labor, gripped the mop handle with quiet resolve. The fluorescent lights cast long shadows, mirroring the divides that simmered beneath the surface of this corporate empire. Suddenly, the elevator doors slid open, revealing Victor Hargrove, the billionaire CEO whose name was synonymous with ruthless ambition. Dressed in a tailored suit that screamed privilege, Hargrove's eyes narrowed at the sight of Elijah mopping a spill near his office. "What the hell is this?" Hargrove barked, his voice echoing like a thunderclap. But it wasn't just annoyance. It was laced with something darker, a disdain rooted in the color of Elijah's skin. He stepped closer, his polished shoes inches from Elijah's worn boots, and unleashed a tirade that cut deeper than any blade, slurs that evoked centuries of systemic oppression, reducing Elijah to a stereotype in front of lingering employees. Elijah stood there, his face a mask of stoic endurance as Hargrove's words hung in the air like poison. The CEO's assistants shifted uncomfortably, but no one intervened. As Hargrove turned to leave, his gaze caught a glimpse of something unusual, a faded tattoo peeking from beneath Elijah's rolled-up sleeve. It was intricate, almost military in design, with symbols that hinted at a hidden past. Hargrove paused, a flicker of unease crossing his features, but he dismissed it with a scoff. Little did he know that tattoo was the key to a revelation that would shatter his world. What secrets could a simple janitor harbor? How could a mark on the skin unravel the facade of power? As the day unfolded, the tension built, promising a twist that would expose not just Elijah's true identity, but the ugly underbelly of prejudice in the heart of America's tech giants. This wasn't just a story of insult. It was a reckoning waiting to happen, inspired by real accounts of overlooked heroes facing racial injustice in corporate America. Elijah Thompson had always been a man of few words, his presence in Apex Tech as unremarkable as the shadows he cleaned away. Born in the segregated South during the Civil Rights era, Elijah grew up in a small Alabama town where opportunities for black families were as scarce as rain in a drought. His parents, sharecroppers by trade, instilled in him the value of hard work and dignity in the face of adversity. As a young man, he migrated north, seeking better prospects, but found the barriers of racism merely reshaped, not removed. Now, at 58, Elijah had been the night janitor at Apex for over a decade. The company, a behemoth in AI development, boasted diversity initiatives on its website, but in reality, the upper echelons were a sea of white faces. Elijah arrived each evening as the sun dipped below the horizon, his uniform faded from countless washes, his toolkit a silent companion. He polished desks where million-dollar deals were signed, emptied trash bins filled with discarded ideas, and wiped away the remnants of boardroom battles. His shifts overlapped with the late-working executives, giving him a front-row seat to the casual bigotry that seeped into conversations. Victor Hargrove, on the other hand, was the epitome of unchecked privilege. Inherited wealth from old oil money propelled him into tech, where he built Apex into a billion-dollar empire through aggressive acquisitions and cutthroat tactics. At 45, Hargrove exuded confidence bordering on arrogance, his blue eyes sharp as daggers, his decisions driven by profit over people. Whispers in the hallways spoke of his disdain for affirmative action hires, and his board meetings often devolved into rants about urban problems infiltrating the workplace. Hargrove's rise was marked by lawsuits quietly settled, allegations of discrimination that never made headlines, buried under NDAs and PR spin. Elijah's routine was predictable, yet poignant. He started in the lobby where motivational posters preached inclusion, then moved upward, floor by floor. On quieter nights, he reflected on his own life. The dreams deferred, the family he supported back home, a daughter in college, a wife battling health issues. The tattoo on his arm, hidden under long sleeves, was a relic from a chapter he seldom revisited. It depicted an eagle clutching a trident, symbols etched in ink during a time of valor and sacrifice. Curiosity about Elijah began to stir among a few employees. A young intern once noticed his deliberate movements, wondering aloud to a colleague if he had military training. But such thoughts were fleeting in the fast-paced environment. Meanwhile, Hargrove's temper simmered, fueled by a recent dip in stock prices. He saw employees like Elijah as expendable, symbols of what he perceived as societal drags. The stage was set for collision, as small incidents accumulated. A spilled coffee blamed on Elijah, a misplaced file leading to accusations. Each one chipped away at his resolve, building an invisible pressure that threatened to erupt. Yet Elijah endured, his silence a shield, his tattoo a silent guardian of truths untold. The air at Apex grew heavier, pregnant with the promise of revelation, as the lines between oppressor and oppressed blurred in the shadows of corporate greed. As weeks turned into months, the undercurrents of racial tension at Apex Tech began to swell like a gathering storm. Elijah's days blended into a monotonous rhythm, but each one carried the weight of subtle aggressions that eroded his spirit. It started small, almost imperceptibly, with Hargrove's offhand comments during all-hands meetings. "We need to focus on merit, not melanin," he'd say with a chuckle, eliciting nervous laughter from the predominantly white leadership team. Elijah, invisible in the back row during rare daytime shifts, felt the words like invisible lashes, reminders that his presence was tolerated, not valued. One evening, as Elijah methodically cleaned the executive lounge, Hargrove burst in with the entourage of investors. The room reeked of cigar smoke and entitlement. Hargrove, animated by a recent merger victory, gestured wildly, knocking over a vase. Shards scattered across the marble floor. "Clean this up, boy," Hargrove snapped, the word boy dripping with historical venom, a term weaponized against black men for generations. Elijah knelt without a word, his knees aching on the cold surface, gathering the pieces as the group watched with detached amusement. One investor murmured something about reliable help, and the laughter that followed echoed in Elijah's ears long after they left. The incidents escalated. During a company retreat in the rolling hills of Napa, Elijah was assigned to maintenance duties. As buses unloaded employees, Hargrove spotted him unloading luggage. "Make sure you don't scratch the Mercedes. It's worth more than your yearly salary," he quipped, his voice loud enough for others to hear. The remark drew snickers, but Elijah saw the deeper cut, an assumption of inferiority based on race and class. Back at the office, memos circulated about cultural fit, code for excluding those who didn't match the white Ivy League mold. Elijah overheard HR discussions about promoting younger, more dynamic staff, bypassing seasoned black employees like the security guard or the cafeteria worker. Elijah's past began to surface in fleeting memories during these moments. The tattoo on his arm itched as if alive, a reminder of his time in the U.S. Navy SEALs during the Gulf War. In the early 1990s, as a young recruit, he had endured grueling training where racism was as brutal as the physical demands. White superiors questioned his abilities, assigning him the toughest tasks to prove himself. Yet Elijah excelled, earning commendations for missions that saved lives in hostile territories. The tattoo, an eagle with a trident and the words, "The only easy day was yesterday," was inked during a ceremony honoring his team's valor. After discharge, haunted by PTSD and disillusioned by a country that forgot its heroes, especially black ones, he chose a quiet life, sending remittances home and avoiding the spotlight. But at Apex, the racism wasn't just verbal. It manifested in systemic ways. Elijah noticed how black colleagues were overlooked for promotions, their ideas credited to white peers. A young engineer, Jamal, confided in him during a late-night cleanup about a pitch stolen by his manager. "It's like we're invisible until they need a scapegoat," Jamal said, though Elijah only nodded, his own experiences mirroring the sentiment. Hargrove's policies exacerbated this. Diversity training was mandatory but superficial, led by consultants who never addressed the CEO's own biases. A pivotal incident occurred during a high-stakes product launch. The office buzzed with energy, banners proclaiming, "Innovation for all." Elijah worked overtime, ensuring the venue was spotless. As guests arrived, including media and venture capitalists, Hargrove paraded through, shaking hands. Spotting a minor smudge on a window, he turned to Elijah. "Can't you do anything right? This is why we can't have nice things," he sneered, the implication clear in his tone: racial incompetence. Employees averted their eyes, but the humiliation burned in Elijah's chest. That night, alone in the break room, he rolled up his sleeve, tracing the tattoo's lines, drawing strength from the past it represented. The tension mounted as Hargrove's behavior drew quiet backlash. Anonymous complaints trickled into HR, hinting at a toxic culture. Elijah, though not complaining, became a symbol in whispered conversations. A Latina receptionist shared stories of similar treatment, forging an unspoken alliance among the marginalized staff. Meanwhile, Hargrove's empire showed cracks. A lawsuit from a former black executive alleging discrimination gained traction in the press, though Hargrove dismissed it as woke nonsense. Elijah's endurance began to falter. Health issues crept in. High blood pressure from stress, sleepless nights replaying insults. His daughter called, worried about his well-being, urging him to quit. But Elijah stayed, driven by a sense of purpose he couldn't yet articulate. The tattoo, once a private emblem, started to feel like a beacon, urging him toward confrontation. As winter approached, the injustices piled up. During a holiday party, Hargrove toasted to success, but Elijah was relegated to serving duties. A drunken executive made a racist joke, met with Hargrove's approval. Elijah cleaned up the mess, his hands trembling. Flashbacks to his SEAL days intensified. Missions where teamwork transcended race, contrasts to this corporate battlefield. The rising stakes reached a boiling point during a crisis. A data breach hit apex, sending the company into chaos. Hargrove blamed the IT team, firing several, including a black technician, unjustly. Elijah, overhearing the fallout while cleaning, felt the weight of collective pain. Rumors spread of union talks, with Elijah unwittingly becoming a figurehead for change. In quiet moments, Elijah reflected on real historical parallels. The Tuskegee Airmen, black veterans who fought abroad only to face discrimination at home. His story echoed theirs, inspired by true events of overlooked heroes in modern workplaces. The emotional stakes heightened. Elijah's silence wasn't weakness but strategy, building toward an inevitable explosion. Hargrove, sensing unrest, doubled down. He implemented efficiency reviews, targeting support staff like Elijah for cuts. During one review, Hargrove confronted him directly in an empty conference room. "You're lucky to have this job," he said, his words laced with condescension. Elijah's tattoo tingled under his shirt, a harbinger of the storm to come. The buildup continued through small acts of resistance. Elijah began leaving subtle notes, articles on racial equity, in Hargrove's office trash, planted during cleanings. Though unnoticed at first, they sowed seeds of doubt. Employees started sharing stories online anonymously, amplifying the injustice. As spring bloomed, a major board meeting loomed. Hargrove prepared to announce a new AI initiative, touted as revolutionary. Elijah, assigned to set up, worked amid the frenzy. An accidental encounter in the hallway, Hargrove, brushing past, muttering a slur, pushed Elijah closer to the edge. His past flooded back. A mission where he rescued wounded comrades under fire, earning the tattoo as a badge of honor. The emotional tension peaked during a rehearsal. Hargrove, stressed, lashed out at the crew, zeroing in on Elijah for a misplaced podium. The room fell silent as Hargrove's rage boiled over, his face red with fury. Elijah stood tall, his sleeve riding up slightly, the tattoo's edge visible. Hargrove noticed but pressed on, unaware of the revelation brewing. Inspired by real cases like the 2020 corporate reckonings post-George Floyd, where hidden biases were exposed, the story's stakes mirrored societal shifts. Elijah's journey symbolized resilience amid oppression, building to a climax where truth would prevail. The boardroom at Apex Tech pulsed with anticipation on that fateful June afternoon in 2024. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the long mahogany table where the future of the company hung in the balance. Hargrove stood at the head, his presentation slides glowing on the screen, outlining a bold new AI venture that promised billions. The room was filled with board members, investors, and key executives, their faces a mix of eagerness and scrutiny. Elijah, tasked with last-minute adjustments, lingered in the corner, adjusting microphones and wiping down surfaces, his presence as overlooked as ever. As Hargrove launched into his pitch, his voice confident and commanding, a technical glitch struck. The projector flickered, then died, plunging the slides into darkness. Murmurs rippled through the room. Hargrove's temper ignited like dry tinder. "Who the hell is responsible for this?" He roared, his eyes scanning for a scapegoat. They landed on Elijah, who was calmly checking the cables. "You. This is your fault, isn't it?" "Incompetent as always." The accusation hung heavy, laced with the familiar undertone of racial bias. Hargrove advanced, pointing accusingly, his face contorted in rage. The board watched in stunned silence as he grabbed Elijah's arm to pull him away from the equipment. In the struggle, Elijah's shirt sleeve tore with a sharp rip, exposing his forearm fully. There, in vivid detail despite the years, was the tattoo. The eagle gripping a trident, encircled by faded but unmistakable insignia of the Navy SEALs, with dates from the Gulf War era. Time seemed to freeze. Hargrove's grip loosened, his eyes widening in recognition. One board member, a veteran himself, leaned forward, whispering, "That's the SEAL Trident. And that unit." They were legends. Whispers spread as phones were pulled out, quick searches confirming the symbol's significance. Elijah stood there, his arm bare, the tattoo a silent testament to a life of heroism Hargrove could never fathom. The intensity peaked as Hargrove stammered, piecing together the implications. Elijah's true identity cascaded into the open. Not just a janitor, but Lieutenant Elijah Thompson, a decorated SEAL who led a daring rescue operation in 1991, saving a platoon under heavy fire. His actions earned him the Navy Cross, but post-service. Facing discrimination in veteran programs and job markets, he chose anonymity, working menial jobs to support his family while battling the invisible scars of war. Hargrove's world crumbled. The glitch forgotten, the room's focus shifted to Elijah, whose quiet dignity now commanded respect. An investor, researching on the spot, found archived news clips of Elijah's heroism, including a photo matching the man before them. The emotional peak hit as Hargrove realized the depth of his prejudice, insulting a hero who embodied the values he preached but never lived. Elijah, for the first time, met Hargrove's gaze with unyielding strength, the tattoo's revelation stripping away the layers of injustice in one raw moment. In the aftermath of the boardroom revelation, Apex Tech transformed from a bastion of hidden biases into a catalyst for change. Hargrove, humbled and exposed, stepped back from the podium as the meeting dissolved into discussions not about AI, but about the man they had overlooked. Elijah's story spread like wildfire through the company, first in hushed tones, then in official memos. HR launched a full investigation into past complaints, uncovering a pattern of discrimination that Hargrove could no longer deny. Elijah, thrust into the spotlight, accepted invitations to share his experiences. He spoke not with bitterness, but with quiet power, detailing his SEAL days. The camaraderie that transcended race on the battlefield contrasted with the barriers faced upon return. Inspired by true events like the struggles of Black veterans post-Vietnam and Gulf Wars, his narrative highlighted how systemic racism forced many heroes into obscurity. Apex implemented reforms, mandatory bias training led by experts, promotion pathways for underrepresented staff, and a fund for veteran employees. Hargrove underwent a personal reckoning. He sought therapy, confronting his upbringing in privileged circles where prejudice was normalized. Publicly, he apologized in a company-wide address, crediting Elijah for opening his eyes. The two men met privately, where Hargrove learned of Elijah's sacrifices, turning down lucrative offers to stay grounded, using his pension to fund community programs in his hometown. The impact rippled outward. Media outlets picked up the story, framing it as a modern parable of racial justice in corporate America. Elijah became a symbol, inspiring similar revelations in other companies. His daughter graduated with honors, proud of her father's legacy. Apex's stock, initially dipping, rebounded stronger, as consumers rallied behind the authentic change. Yet the true resolution lay in the everyday. Elijah promoted to advisory role, his tattoo now a badge worn openly. The company diversified its board, fostering an environment where merit truly prevailed over melanin. This tale, drawn from real inspired accounts of hidden heroes facing injustice, leaves us with a powerful question. How many Elijahs walk among us? Their true worth concealed by the tattoos of prejudice we refuse to see. In reflecting on this, may we all strive to look beyond the surface, dismantling the barriers that divide us, one revelation at a time.